Menny Barzilay, my beloved friend and dear partner, has done something incredible in the last year or so. He had more conversation with CISOs than anyone else, trying to understand with CISOs all over their challenge, how they deal with the great challenge of preparing for a cyber crisis, how they deal actually with being ready. Because at the end of the day, the CISOs will be the one to blame, but how they prepare. And I'm so happy that Menny agreed to moderate the panel now on the CISO's point of view. What does it mean to be cyber ready from the CISO's point of view? Menny, the floor is yours.
We need to, woo! We're going to have a fun panel now. We're going to have the CISO's perspective on cyber crisis management. I want to call the panelists to the stage. Please come. Please come, please come, please come. Yeah, the amazing panelists. We have prepared a table, a long table for you guys. Take your seats. There are names, so you could check your names. This is your first test to see if you can read your own name and find your seat according to that. So this is a very interesting discussion because I don't know if you know that CISOs have a very important role in cyber crisis management. Slowly by slowly, in recent years, organizations started realizing that cyber crisis management is much more than a technological issue. It's a business issue, and many stakeholders in the organization should collaborate in order to promote the readiness of the organization. And still, the CISO has a central role in building this readiness, in making this happen. And what we're going to talk today is about the CISO's role, the CISO's point of view, the CISO's challenges, and what would actually make a good readiness process. So before we will start, what I want you to do is, one by one, present yourself, where you're coming from, and something about yourself. Just make sure you speak to the microphones. I'm not sure everything is working, but I'll check it now.
While Menny is checking the mics, I'll start. Hi, everybody. Joseph, Yossi Tal, General Manager of Trellix Israel and also the SVP of the Advanced Research Centers of Trellix globally. Trellix is basically a combination of McAfee and FireEye, providing XDR, endpoint, network, mail, and network security capabilities. Prior of becoming a part of Trellix leadership, I was also a part of the CISO organization of Citibank. And prior to that in IBM, Global Infrastructure Security and Threat Intelligence. Glad to be here.
Yes, Neil.
Don't want it, Menny.
Perfect. Just speak to the microphone. Speak close to the microphone.
Mic check. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay, good. Hi, I'm Nir Rothenberg, CISO of Rapyd, with a Y, not Rapyd 7. I don't sell security. Rapyd is a fintech company. We make payment solutions, and I'm there managing IT security, information systems. But I'm a CISO, so that's my thing. So good to be here.
So thank you. Thanks, Menny and Laurent, for bringing
Speak, and nobody can hear you. You have to scream.
Menny and Nimrod for bringing me here. It's very nice to be here with you. My name is Inbar Ben-Tsion Regerman, and I'm a manager at the Advanced Security Center, formerly known as Cytactic. I'm managing a privacy security team, and I'm also a CISO of a very nice NGO, nonprofit organization called Leket Israel. They're the food bank of Israel, and they're doing wonderful work. In addition to that, I'm managing a cybersecurity and privacy community in an organization called ACC. ACC is the Association of Corporate Councils. I used to be a lawyer for 20 years before I transitioned into cybersecurity a few years ago. I'm old. And okay, so that's me for now.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Moni Givol. I'm currently the Deputy CISO at Unity. We create game engines, no pun intended. I think the crowd here is too old to understand who Unity is, but if you have kids, tell them they'll be happy, like my kids when they ask, when do we get free games? That didn't happen, so glad to be here.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Tsofit Shahar. I'm currently the VP Strategy in BizDev and Cybecs, a private company, but a former global CISO of El Al, which is our national airline company in Israel. And the last role was a global CISO of Elbit Systems, Defense.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Yony. I am the CISO of Bank Hapoalim, the largest bank in Israel. Short.
Perfect. We are so happy to have such a wonderful group of CISOs. Seriously, some of the Israelis leaders in security. Guys, let me tell you what makes a terrible panel discussion. Are you ready? Number one that makes a terrible panel discussion, that everybody agrees with everybody else. So if this is going to be like, I agree, that's not going to work. I want you to argue. The second thing that will make a terrible panel discussion is that everybody sits very, very quietly and very, 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 very polite. This is Israel. We're not quiet and not polite. We will make things happen. So let's be very, very interesting. I'm going to ask the first question, and anyone who wants to jump in and answer, feel free to answer. And the first question is as such. As I said, cyber crisis readiness is a multidisciplinary problem. Multidisciplinary says that a lot of people are involved, and it's not just technology, it's also business. If you don't know, the ICRC is the interdisciplinary research center. And the question is, even though it's a multidisciplinary challenge, and even though a lot of people in the organization are involved with that, sometimes, not always, but many times, especially in Israel, the CISO is being seen as the person in charge of somehow pushing the readiness program forward. And my question to you, from your point of view, how do you cultivate everyone inside the organization to take part of this process? How do you, from the technological point of view, from the CISO's point of view, push forward the readiness project inside the organization? Who wants to start? Yes, please, Jony.
I will jump first. So I think that the best way to motivate your parties, players in the different line of business, first of all, is awareness, and to share them with stories about events that happened in different organizations, and starting to a little bit, Nimrod said, the fear, but to make them think to themselves, am I really 100% sure that I'm ready for a cyber event in my area? And if he's not 100%, and he's not, so it will be much more easier to recruit him to be part of this readiness journey. And if by accidentally you came to an organization that everything is perfect, everyone is sure that the world is pink, so the best way is to do a simulation, and as we all know, there is always a place to improve, and I believe that this is the first step in building a partnership in making the organization much more ready for a cyber event.
So absolutely, I agree. If you're about not to agree,
no,
so
not
that's
to
also
agree.
good.
You said not to agree.
Yeah,
so
I
you
know.
Must not to agree.
I didn't agree with what I said earlier, so now I agree with. But what I'm saying is that you said that the first step is they have to recognize that there is a challenge. And sometimes we get to those organizations where they say, no, everything is perfect. We have handled crisis before, not cyber crisis, but different type of crisis. It's going to be okay. By the way, those organizations that manage crisis on the regular basis, like hospitals, like critical infrastructure entities, are usually not that good in cyber crisis management because they think that because they manage different type of crises, they will also be able to manage a cyber crisis, which is a very different type of a crisis. So that's always a challenge. So getting them to the moment where they understand that there is an issue. What did you want to say?
So I wanted to say that we need to start and talk business. As CISOs, we have to talk business. We have to understand the business language. We have to understand the business case of everything that we present to management. If we don't get management engagement, the tone at the top, if we don't get that, then we will not get the money, we will not get that organizational attention, and we will be able to do nothing. So in order to do that, we have to talk business. We have to understand how they think, what they want, and what is important to the business to continue.
How would a CISO talk business?
So we will need to talk business in a financial language. We would need to sit with the CFO and understand what is making the organization tick financially. We must understand what are the business units that are the most important to the business. We need to sit with their managers, understand how they operate, what is important to them, and how we can help them achieve their goals and requests and everything that they need to operate.
Perfect. Yossi, you wanted to say something?
I would like to echo what Inbar just mentioned, and also kind of iterate that fact that the CISO organization is supposed to basically to prepare for the worst, hope for the best, of course. But in case of of managing an institution, a large organization, you're supposed basically to develop and cultivate defense in depth type of approach. You need to understand what is as Inbar just mentioned, the fact that you need to understand what are the critical infrastructure, how to basically to manage a blast radius. From the sessions that you guys had earlier, I mean, the fact that you find something inside of one of the machines, immediately that machine is supposed to be, for example, quarantined and deleted, and all the forensics supposed to be, pulled out from that machine to understand immediately what happened. There is no time for mistakes. A mistake is basically can cause a critical type of situation within the organization. Now, one more thing that I would like to mention is that the business is usually driven by a strategic type of view. When you basically building the strategic view with the board, that's supposed to align both to the business and the risk assessment of the organization. So when you're doing basically the risk assessment, you're doing it based on the business needs.
So I think you went back to what Inbar said, which is we have to speak the business language.
Absolutely.
And that's a very interesting point, because I think that the moment we talk about viruses and hacking, we lose some of the audience in the organization. But the moment we talk about money, business interruption, legal claims, then people start listening. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to dive a little deeper. Okay, I feel we're a little bit in buzzwords here. Talk about the money, talk business, training, awareness, AI, big data, the cloud, right?
Drones.
Right? To say that CISO needs to talk business is like saying the CISO needs to be able to talk. Okay, that's like a given. Even though I don't want to discriminate anybody, I assume that if a CISO can't talk, he could also do a good job if he can communicate. So obviously we need to communicate. But what we need to do, your question was, how do we get the organization behind us or with us in a crisis?
Exactly.
Shoulder to shoulder. The first thing you need to do is pick the right organization. If I go to interview to an organization and I feel they suck, I'm not going to go work there. It's easy. So right there, that's a first step. If you guys want to be a CISO and you go to an organization, you talk to the CEO, he's like, this is stupid. You're like, okay, nice knowing you. Good luck with your cyber program. So that's the first thing. A lot of CISOs that get fired just went to work for the wrong company. So that's my biggest advice is first know where you work and establish what you think is the right thing to do in a crisis beforehand. And for that, to do that, you need to have your playbook in your mind before. So in order to be able to collaborate with other people, you need to know what you want. And that's a big problem with CISOs. I would admit on myself that when I had my first cyber crisis, when I was a CISO of NSO and they stole Pegasus, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. The forensics guy came and the CEO was there. I was like, what? Because I was thinking about isolating a machine and virus, and that's not a crisis. And I think people don't understand, man, you need to teach them more. What's the difference between an incident and a crisis? So it's all so to summarize, I disagree with everybody, it's all your fault.
Oh, thank you so much. So if you already said it, I accept the responsibility, but I think you touched the point. What's the difference between a cyber incident and a cyber crisis? Our internal terminology in Cytactic, and I think this is acceptable, everybody accept that. A cyber crisis is a cyber incident with huge business implications. If this is something which is only technically limited to the technical world, this is a cyber incident. The tech people know how to deal with that. But if it is something with a lot of business implications, this is a crisis, and then it becomes a multidisciplinary challenge. Sophie, did you want to say something?
Yeah,
keep it simple.
Just a sentence, because a lot of CISOs stand in front of the board of directors and answer the question, why is so expensive? So communicating the risk.
Yeah.
Explain the impact of the risk, not how much it costs to prepare, how much it costs unprepared.
The cost of not being prepared. You know, this is a very important point, I have to say. We had a discussion, my partner, Nimrod Kozlovsky, and myself, I think it was 8 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, when the economic situation of the world started getting worse. There was a claim that it would be hard for people to invest in readiness because everybody spent less and less money. But actually, this is something that Nimrod said. He said, just the opposite is true. During economic situation where everything is worse, this is exactly the right time to invest in readiness because you cannot afford yourself to have a crisis. This is the worst time for you to have a crisis. So this is exactly when you have to invest in readiness to make sure that you don't have a crisis. And I think this is a very, very good point to iterate. Perfect.
I think that, Manny, to iterate here, I think supply chain became one of the areas that every organization must basically invest to avoid crisis. I mean, there's those, supply chain just became just one of the areas that everybody must look at, continuously, audit and make sure that everybody is making the right effort to keep up with the right effort and, and the alignment from security perspective to match the security level and risk level that the company or the organization basically set for them.
Yes, I want to say something about it. To begin with, I absolutely agree. I don't think that you said something wrong, but in this, I think that in the context of this conference, we are taking into account that it doesn't matter what you will do. Eventually, there is a chance that you will have a crisis, right? It is true. You have to take care of those things. The supply chain is one of the biggest problems that we have right now in the world. But even if you do that, and if you invest more and more and more in prevention, you still have to make sure that you're ready for a crisis, because a crisis will probably happen, and it doesn't matter what is your security budget. The security budget could affect on a lot of things, the frequency of incidents, the size of the impact, but everybody will, or there is a good chance that most organizations will have some kind of a crisis. I want to move to the second point. We're talking about readiness. What does it mean to be ready for a crisis?
That the playbook is basically up and running, simulated, being reviewed by the board, and approved for execution in case of need.
Okay, very interesting point. So playbooks, what do you mean by playbooks?
That the different situations of potential crisis being identified, the risk is being, calculated, and the way of action was basically set for the organization to execute in case of need.
So having response processes implemented in the organization beforehand, right? Perfect. What else?
Yeah, I want to add something. I think at the end, the crisis is managed by people. You can have playbooks all day long, but eventually when you have a crisis and you don't know who's the next person you need to talk to, or do you have the lawyer on call, or you have the right company, or you have the right resources, internal and external. Sometimes you need a lot of help and consultations to understand, how do I report to the SEC? What else do I have in terms of marketing? How do I handle media, etc.? So a crisis is not limited just to internal processes. It's mostly about how people work together to solve it as fast as they can. So at the end, it's people, and you need to make sure that everyone is aware what their role within a crisis, what they need to do, who they need to communicate. Sometimes you have a playbook, but if the person is not available, what do you do?
So having people understanding their roles and responsibilities of crisis beforehand, asking the hard questions beforehand, finding the answers, and making sure that you're implementing the right processes. Tsofit, do you want to say something? The microphone is working.
Yeah, thank you. So in military, we're saying training hard, fight easy. Yeah? So do and perform more and more training on regular basis, not once a year. this is very important to collaborate all the teams, all the stakeholders as well.
Absolutely. Training, tabletop exercises, we'll talk about that in a second. I think this is super, super important.
So I wanted to...
One of you. You start and then...
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks. So I wanted to take the same path that I started before and say that we need to first decide what are the business impacts that we want to achieve, right? We want to align our BCP plan, our business continuity plan, with the goals and objectives of our business. We want to first recover and first contain the most effective parts for our company. For that to happen, we need to understand what are the basics, right? Like we said before, the basics and process, people, and technology that are important to our organization. And this is the first step.
Okay, perfect. Jony.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what Tsofit said, because for me, readiness is the understanding that it's an endless journey. You can always be very prepared, but you won't get to the 100% of readiness because people change, the line of business change, everything is being changed in your organization. And as everyone said, you have to do always a lot of simulations and, of course, to choose the different groups that you're working with them. Because for the senior management, it's a different way of simulation. And if you're taking like the administrators or I don't know, the cyber division in your organization, it means that you have to do different simulations and different ways to check if everyone is really ready.
Perfect. To check and verify, maybe measure your readiness. Those are very, very...
Many, one of the most important things are avoid risk.
Avoid risk, yeah, as much as you can. Neil, did you want to say something about that?
No, I was actually, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, ask a question.
So I was wondering, guys, Tsofit, you said, you train more than once a year. Yeah, at least in my organization, we're very busy. I don't know how you guys run your organizations, but we're kind of busy. And to do, like you say, hey, imagine if, Al-Qaeda rushes our offices right now and, whatever scenario you can think of that's a crisis. I'm not talking about an incident, again, a crisis, something crazy. You need a buy-in. So first you need a buy-in from the team that they have 1,000 vulnerabilities to remediate. Tell them, oh, forget about your day-to-day fires. Let's think about something that you can't even imagine that could happen. And you can't get the buy-in. And then from there, go to the management, the board, and wherever you want to go. That's almost impossible. So I'm really wondering, when you guys say, do it more than once a year, prepare a lot, how? I mean, we're busy, right?
If you have an internal red team in your company, use the red team to build a payload.
They don't do crisis. We're talking about crisis. We're talking about, we're talking North Korea attacks us. We're not talking about, some kind of regular scenario with a regular hacker or something through some web portal or something. We're talking about a crisis.
State-sponsored type.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking something huge. Exactly. We're talking about SolarWinds. How can you practice SolarWinds more than once a year in a normal organization? I don't know. I've been in a security organization and now in a fintech organization. Nobody has the time for that.
But
you do once a year,
as a CISO, you can build a culture of security for long time associated with boring.
I think what Neil, I agree with what you said, but I think what Neil is saying is that it seems like organizations always prioritize the urgent things over the important things because there are so many urgent things and we don't even get to take care of the urgent things. So not to talk about the important thing. And the question that Neil is asking is, you guys, like as security leaders, how do you bring your organization to deal with the important things, even though it's not urgent, and even though in the Israeli culture we have this, it's going to be all right, don't worry about it. How do you tackle this challenge?
Most of companies, the institutions that I know, are driven by regulation. So the regulators are basically asking or basically even demanding to have kind of a committee within the board that deals with cyber readiness. And that's one of the things that I think every institution, even if it's not driven by regulation, is supposed to adopt. This is something that everybody must kind of, build within the organization, that muscle, that rigor, to understand that if something will go wrong, what will be the response path?
I will just say that part of the regulation, as you said, if you are communicate with, we'll talk about, let's say, the IT division. If you are communicate with the privileged user and the one that you will go to war with them, so part of the work plan, of the yearly work plan, is doing war room simulations with them, and this is part of the partnership, but it's something that you have to build for years, that they will understand that it's something that they want to be part of that, and it's not something that, you're like an obstacle in their way.
It's a derivative of the board, basically a derivative of the board's,
it's a culture.
Kind of guidance.
But it's an organizational culture, and it depends what kind of culture you can make and build in your organization.
So I agree. I agree, Yossi, and obviously, Jony, with the message you're pushing. You're saying, guys, the regulations and regulators are very good entities to push agendas of important but not urgent things. So through regulations, the regulators forces organizations to deal with the important things, even if they are not urgent. There's still lack of regulation in cyber crisis management, but we see a huge amount of new regulations that have been published in the last 3 years, slowly starting to dictate what is cyber crisis management and how organizations should be ready. And obviously, readiness is the key. If you want to be ready, if Israel or any other country want to be ready for a crisis, for an earthquake, for example, we cannot be in a situation where we will say, when the earthquake will happen, we will figure it out. You have to build it beforehand. The processes, as you said, making sure everybody knows what they should do. Train, make sure everybody has the ability to execute the plan, have the processes. So yeah, getting ready.
So just a question here to the team here, to this panel here. I mean, how many of you actually implemented, for example, immutable storage?
A what, sorry?
Immutable storage.
Immutable storage, like backups, immutable backups. So yeah, I guess some of them. We don't talk about technologies inside organizations.
It's easier to recover from immutable storage.
Take a microphone. Take a microphone.
I don't need a microphone. Everyone can hear.
No, but there's a Zoom session.
So I think there's a big misconception between cyber and a crisis here. A crisis starts maybe from a cyber event, but it escalates to a business. Now, who handles the crisis is the upper management, the CEO, the CFO. It's not something you need storage for. It starts maybe by a cyber event, but then it escalates and your business now is in trouble and you have financial issues and legal issues and PR issues. It's not something that on the regular basis your cyber team will handle. It starts with the cyber team, but eventually, well, even quick enough, it moves to the upper management and you're just part of the team that is in the office when the crisis happens, but very quickly, when it's a crisis, you're just, as a guest in the room.
Okay, perfect. Guys, we have 5 minutes. I want a quick question and then an even quicker question, so answer quickly. A company wants to start the journey of cyber crisis management. Let's say a CISO of a new organization goes there, it's a big organization, they see that no one have ever done anything in cyber crisis readiness. How would they start? What do they should do to begin this journey?
Want me to start?
What?
You want me to start?
Everybody can start.
I think the first thing will be to adopt the latest risk assessment made internally, and also to cross-reference it with an external entity that will basically vet what you basically found. That's one. And secondly, to identify the areas that are basically business critical to make sure that you have the right response in case of emergency or crisis. Those two elements will provide you the immediate understanding of where are the areas that you need to invest the time and energy in. And secondly, the areas of response that you will be able, that you will need to basically to develop for the right tools and technologies and skills to basically to mitigate.
Perfect. Inbar.
So if you get even one thing from me today, it's business, okay? It's always business because we are in the business of business. We're in the business of security, but it needs to align with the business, so we first need to know what are our critical assets, which are not only technological assets, there are also processes and also people. And we need to verify where our data is and where crucial elements of business are. We need to verify and find out how to protect them the best. And in order to do that, we need to understand who are our potential attackers, what are the potential vectors of attack, and what are the potential malwares that will come against us from those attackers. After we know all that, then we can start deciding on what are the controls that we want to implement, technological controls, and also processes, policies, and organizational.
Thank you.
So I will add that I think most security organizations don't really know how to describe crisis to the management. And you need a partner that actually can come in and explain all the aspects of a crisis to the legal team, marketing, I mentioned that before. Get a partner that knows what a crisis is, because I don't think security teams know, and start from there, and then they will be able to help you build what you need.
Perfect, yeah.
I think the CISO need to talk business, but not from terrify or fear strategy. I think he needs to know who is the threat landscape, all the groups, such as Lazarus, Conti, and others, and know the TTPs, the techniques, and tactic, how to protect on the organization.
Perfect.
Well, if it's your first step and the first time that you are doing that, I strongly advise you to take an external specialist that will advise you how to build it, someone that built it in a lot of other organizations, and they can give you a right benchmark, and then it will help you to identify the assets, the major line of business, and everything that everyone said. But if it's your first time, take someone that has been there for a lot of times.
Perfect, perfect. Do you want to say something, Neil?
I'm fine, thanks. So yeah, consultants are always good. That's always the answer for anything, especially in big organizations. But my advice for you, for anybody who just became a new CISO and wants to start dealing with crisis, is try to, assuming you know how to talk, you know English, and you know how to speak to your CEO, speak to him, speak to the board, understand what's the worst case scenario, connect that to what you know. And if that doesn't help, to ask ChatGPT. So that's what. good
Guys, you wouldn't believe how brilliant the people that sit on this stage are, and how much knowledge they have in the world of crisis readiness and information security as a whole. If you have any questions for them, just catch them after this talk. Thank you so much for sharing the insights. It was such a brilliant discussion. Thank you, good, and have a wonderful day.